Hello everyone, on behalf of the Mindalia TV team, it is a great pleasure to me to welcome you to Mindalia live streaming, where thousands of people around the world gather daily to see lectures and interviews. Our guest today is Suzanne Giesemann, and the space that is about to start has been named Connecting with Guides and Loved Ones Across the Veil. Suzanne Giesemann is a mystic medium, author, and messenger of hope. Before starting with her, I just want to remind the people beyond the screen that we are Mindalia.com. We are an international nonprofit organization, and that you can help us doing very simple things. You can like, you can subscribe, you can basically interact with us in any way you want through our different platforms and social media, because every time you do that, we reach one more person in the planet. It is now my great pleasure to introduce you to Suzanne Giesemann. Suzanne, the screen is all yours. We are ready to hear you and learn everything you came to teach us.
Thank you so much, Mirna, and welcome everybody. Bienvenidos, right? It is such a pleasure to talk with you, and I want to just jump right in with a question for you. How would your life change if you knew beyond any doubt that you are never alone, that you have helpers at another dimension of reality who are just waiting for you to ask for their help, who jump in and help you even when you don't ask, to try to make your life here a bit easier? How would your life change if you knew that your loved ones who have passed are still right here, but at a different level of vibration, a frequency, like a radio or TV signal that we simply can't tune into most of the time, but that any of us can learn to tune into? Well, I'm here to tell you that I have learned from personal experience, from teaching this to thousands of people over the last 12, 13 years, that the answers to those questions is you can learn this and you are not alone. And the bottom line is, if we are so loved, so looked after, if we only knew this, we would all find so much more peace and joy and happiness and feel the connection that is innately ours. The problem is we think we're only human, and I've come to know that we're not. And I was a bit of a hard case to learn this lesson. My background, very briefly, I spent 20 years in the Navy. I rose to the rank of commander. And in my final assignment, I was the aide, the assistant to the head of the entire United States military. So I was about as left brain, as logical, analytical as people come. And at that time, I had no idea there is a spirit world. I had no idea there was anything beyond this physical reality. But because of the death of my stepdaughter, who was a sergeant in the Marine Corps, who was struck and killed by lightning in 2006, I embarked on a path that took me in a completely different direction. Today, I connect with people's loved ones on a daily basis. I connect with my personal team of spirit guides daily, and they provide wisdom that's shared with thousands and thousands of people. World. It's the greatest I could ever imagine. I used to think that meeting with kings and queens and presidents, like I did when I was a commander in the Navy, was this great honor. But now, to show all of you that we really don't die, the physical body may die, but we, as expressions of the source that breathes us, are eternal, is the greatest message, the greatest honor I could ever imagine. What has convinced me, what has left no doubt whatsoever, that your loved ones are still right here, that you can connect with them, that all of us can, is the evidence that comes in when we connect across the veil. If we know we can ask those we're communicating with for proof and validation that this is not just our imagination, they will give it to us. So I'll share a couple stories with you, and then I'll tell you how that connection takes place. By way of evidence, that's information that comes from those we're communicating with in consciousness that we can't possibly know. So how about one example from a reading that I did when I sat one-on-one with a gentleman who came in to have a session with me because his wife wanted him to have it. That was kind of funny because he told me he was on the fence about mediumship, which is connecting with loved ones who have passed. And I said, well, let's just let the evidence speak for itself. I can't convince you of anything. Let's let your loved ones do it. I tuned in and right away I felt a father across the veil. I described this man as having Native American heritage and handing over a special knife to his son, my client. Then I said his brother had just stepped into our field, and his brother, instead of showing up very loving, showed up really angry. He showed me that most of his life he had a chip on his shoulder and he was apologizing for his attitude. And then a friend stepped in, a friend of the client, showed how he had died, said that he and my client used to smoke funny cigarettes. He was talking about marijuana. And he said, good to see you, bro. Well, by this point, my client's eyes are huge. He says, my dad was Native American partly. Nobody knew that. I have his knife. My brother was absolutely angry his whole life. And that friend, yeah, we enjoyed a few funny cigarettes, and he always called me bro. And the man just looked so stunned. I said, so what do you think about mediumship now? And he said, I got to tell you, I'm not on the fence anymore. So that's just one example of loved ones across the veil who are just waiting to communicate with us. A medium is a mouthpiece for those who no longer have a physical voice, but our loved ones use many ways to get through to us. They send us signs, but we have to know that those signs are out there to even be looking for them. Signs can be things such as in the case of my stepdaughter who passed, a butterfly that came right when I was asking for a sign from my stepdaughter and did something very unusual, flew around me in a complete circle, bounced straight into my heart, flew down the trail towards my husband who was hiking, flew around him in a circle, bounced into his heart and flew off. Anybody else have goosebumps right now? That's just one sign. They love to play with our electronics. I remember how my stepdaughter turned our television on when we were nowhere near it, right when we were wondering if she was around. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. All of my work is focused on helping you understand that. So you can find a lot of information about that on my website. But let's talk about guides and angels. Do you have them? Absolutely. They tell us we would stumble through life a lot more if it weren't for their help. I remember sitting with a woman in a session, and usually I only tune into loved ones, but this woman's guide was insistent. I said, I'm so surprised to hear from your guide, but he tells me you're not listening to him. He's been trying to tell you, you have a physical problem that you need to get fixed. He's showing me it's right here in the center of your torso. I'm not aware of any organs right there, but it's like a great big mass, but it's not a cancer. He says that this will get worse and you must fix it. It is not going to kill you, but the pain will grow worse. And he says, you're being too stubborn because you don't trust doctors at all. Now, how's that for specific? And the woman's looking at me with big eyes and she says, Suzanne, I had an accident while riding my horse about a year ago. He kind of stopped suddenly. I fell forward and the saddle, I don't know what it's called, whatever that thing is on the front of the saddle, hit her right there. And she said, the pain is getting worse, but you're right. He's right. My guide, I don't trust doctors at all. And I said, well, your guide's telling me right now, they will guide you to a doctor you can trust. And like they said, it's not going to kill you, but it will get worse. You know, that woman trusted what her guide said. And indeed, she had a giant hernia right there, a big tear in the wall of the muscle, and she got it fixed. So I guess her guide did give her that knowing of what doctor to choose. And that's how they work with us a lot. Many people think that our guides are going to speak to us in full sentences, and sometimes they will, if you work on clearing your mind to be able to hear their messages. But many times it's just a knowing that you're supposed to take a certain action. The challenge is that before we get to know that we are connected across this entire web of consciousness, so much more powerful than the World Wide Web. I call it the cosmic web of consciousness, and it will prove its presence to you, your connection to it in miraculous ways once you open up to the awareness that you're part of it. Well, once we realize that, we come to know that not all of our brilliant thoughts are our own. Our guides put so many thoughts into our mind, and if we'll listen, our heart will tell us which ones to act on. I have a story, you might want to check it out. It's called Wolf's Message. It's on audiobook, it's on regular book, and it's the story of a young man who, just like my stepdaughter, was struck and killed by lightning. This young man left absolute proof that we are all souls in a human body for a while, eternal souls. He left a drawing and a poem that proved his soul knew he would be struck and killed by lightning the next day. He came back through me with amazing evidence that I was communicating with this young man. It's all in the story, but he also came back with a message for all of us about our interconnection. And it boils down to basically why the book is called Wolf's Message. His message for all of us is what all of my teaching today focuses on. And it's what all of us need to understand. Number one, you are both a soul and a human right now. And just by knowing that, you can shift your awareness at any time. Einstein said that no problem can be solved at the level at which it originated. Where are all of your challenges you're dealing with right now? Right here in the physical world. So what if you know beyond any doubt there is a greater reality, that cosmic web of consciousness? Instead of tuning into Google for answers to your challenges, tune into your guides, tune into consciousness and ask the question from your heart. That's shifting your focus from human to soul. So knowing that is the first part of the message. Number two is you're part of this big web connected to all that is. Once you ask the question clearly, instead of just wondering, what do I do? What do I do? You sit quietly and take advantage of the third principle of this teaching from Wolf, what I call the awakened way. And you get out of the head and into the heart. What does that mean? Don't think so much. Tune into the feeling aspect of you, that bridge between the human and the soul that tunes into the answers that come in from this cosmic web you're part of. So you sit quietly, take a nice, deep, slow breath, let it out really slowly. And now simply trust that you have guides waiting for you to ask. Ask God, ask the masters such as Jesus or Buddha or the archangels. Trust me, they're real. Once you learn to trust, open that door a little of belief, the miracles start flooding in. I went over my pages and pages and pages of notes online today for beautiful stories to share with you. And this is what I'm talking about. If you start writing down the miracles that come to you, once you start asking the questions, I guarantee you soon you will guarantee others. We are all part of one big web. So you ask the questions, the answers come in many ways. You may suddenly just know. You may hear an answer. Or you may simply meet someone that suddenly tells you exactly what you need to know. You may be drawn to a certain book on your bookshelves that you've never noticed before, or led to one on the internet. Opportunities may start to open up to you, but insights may also just bubble up from awareness. Your true nature is awareness, that knowing I am, I exist. That's what never goes away. The problem is we as humans are so busy thinking and talking and doing that unless we take the time to quiet the mind, we often miss the messages that our guides and loved ones across the veil are trying to give us. And that's why I am the greatest advocate of any kind of contemplative practice that allows you to practice being present, being silent for just a few minutes, if that's what you can spare, and listening. I highly recommend you check out on YouTube any one of my videos, but one that's been very popular because it shows you exactly how to ask those big life questions of spirit is Sip of the Divine, where SIP stands for sit in peace. Very simple practice. Do that every day for 3 minutes for 3 weeks, and you will have started a new practice that will change your life. I guarantee it. I know it changed my life when I began sitting quietly. Oh gosh, 15 years ago when my Susan passed. My sole purpose, and you can see that either way, SOLE or SOUL. Either way, my purpose was to connect with Susan. And I did connect with her so beautifully, but with so much more than I ever expected. We truly limit ourselves when we think that we're only these bodies here and these brains. But trust me, after the brain no longer works, after the body no longer functions, you will be hyper aware that you still exist. So how I made that transition to medium is told in a beautiful documentary that you can also find online, Messages of Hope. It's on YouTube and Amazon Prime, also in books. My greatest goal is not to serve as a medium for others, but to teach others how to make this connection yourself. And to that end, I have all kinds of gifts on my website. Just go to SuzanneGiesemann.com, the gifts page, because that's where you'll learn how to meditate. But in the meantime, I also send out daily messages from my guides that give us peace and wisdom and insights that speak to every one of us because we are all connected. And just recently, somebody posted some questions to one of my daily posts about connecting with angels. And I thought I'd answer his questions here because they apply to all of us. So his questions are, how do I reach out to angels? Well, first it's that belief that they really are here and you can do this. And then you simply sit quietly, like we've been saying, tune into your heart so you get out of the thinking mind, and just with intention, say whatever words you would say to a friend, because that's part 2 of his question. How do I address them? As deities or as gods? Well, the angels have told me repeatedly, with lots of evidence, we're about to put a video up today, angels are real. But they have told me repeatedly, don't put us on a pedestal. We're all equal as expressions of the one mind, the one divine intelligence. Address us any way you'd like, but address us as friends, if you will. So how would you talk to a friend? Yeah, I still revere them because they're so amazingly loving and they bring miracles into our lives. But I would just say, in fact, this morning I prayed to my angels. I said, angels, I would like to have more drop-ins from spirit. I would like to feel people's loved ones even when I'm not giving a reading. I'm open to that. Bring it on. And you know, just this morning I was reading an email from someone and her daughter dropped right in on me from the spirit world. Direct answer right away to my reaching out to the angels this morning. So please try it. This is the number one thing I'd like to leave you with. Make this a regular practice in your life. Make it part of your life. Then you will know you're not alone. You will feel so supported. The miracles will flow. And if your life is not flowing, if things just aren't going right in your life, that is a sign that you're not connecting with them, that you're trying to do it your way instead of allowing spirit, the angels, your guides, your loved ones to guide you. It's just the easiest test of all. How's that working for you? Okay. Another question from this gentleman. Are angels just like us, only in spirit form, or are they more highly evolved, closer to God? They're not just like us. Most angels, as opposed to our loved ones who have passed, the angels mostly have not lived life in human form, but they certainly understand what we're going through. They definitely have a higher perspective, less limited awareness, because they're not constricted by the rules of earthly life and these physical bodies. And so they will show up to you if you're very visual in a way that you'll recognize them. You may see them with wings in your mind's eye, and some by grace will have the image of an angel in their room. I just had a friend yesterday, I was hiking with her, and she told me how one moment after her son passed, the most beautiful angel appeared before her eyes right in the room. I once saw my guides, my angels, as a dancing flame in front of my eyes. I turned my head to the right, it stayed there, and then it moved over like that. So any variety of ways, but you will know in your heart, my gosh, this is an angel. And so are they closer to God? The angels will tell us none of us could be any closer to God. There may be far more aligned with our true nature as expressions of source, meaning so much more aware that love is what connects us all. And that the more loving we are, the more the choices we make are in accordance with love, the higher our vibration, the more angelic we will be. That's how they want us to live. So are they closer to God? If by that we mean, are they more loving? Absolutely. Because here in this earthly world, we learn by trial and error, and we will continue to make mistakes. That's the way this earthly realm goes. But the angels operate by different rules, and theirs is a realm of total love. Wow. So wouldn't you want to call on them for a little help? Let's see what else. How am I to come to know they are real? Put them to the test. They don't mind. When you've had a conversation with your angels, you believe you received an answer back from them, say to them, I'd really like to trust that this is not my imagination. Please give me a sign in the coming days that this was you. And I'd like you to give me this sign. And in that moment of pausing, something that they're going to show you will pop into your mind. But what's really cool is what happens is they put that idea in your mind, knowing you're going to encounter it. So it was really funny. One time I shared this insight with a gentleman, and I said, but be sure you ask for something that is real. Like, don't ask for a pink elephant. And just to, as we used to say in the Navy, pull my chain. I know my guides were messing with me when that thought came in my mind, because the very next day, my husband and I were out for a bike ride on a road we'd never been along. I turned to the right, and there's a car dealership. Out front was a life-size pink elephant. So ask for a sign from your guides. And then because you ask for it, they'll snag your attention when you see it. It could be something that you see. Don't always expect those signs to be exactly literal. One day I asked my guides to give me a sign of a silver medallion, popped into my mind. Right away, I knew they put that there, because where did that come from? We always think they're our thoughts. So I'm expecting some coin to show up in front of me. Instead, I got on an airline flight. I never read the magazine in the back of the seat, but something made me pull it out. I'm leafing through it mindlessly. I turn the page, and there it says, if you sign up for our frequent flyer miles, you will reach silver medallion status. So just know that they play with us. Angels can be humorous. They also understand so much of what we go through here. Every challenge you have, take it to your guides and angels. Take it to your loved ones and interact. It's not just like prayer where you ask for a favor and hear nothing back. They will respond, if only this huge surge in your heart. And that's the last question this gentleman asked. How am I to feel their presence? Well, here's the deal, everybody. Your loved ones and your guides are so much around you now, we don't realize it. So there's actually this beautiful meditation that I love to lead, but we don't have time today, but you can do it yourself, where you sit in the silence, get really relaxed, and ask your guides and loved ones to step out of your energy field and feel the difference when they're not giving you that ongoing loving embrace. Then ask them to step back in one by one. Let me feel you. become super sensitive to what your body's telling you, what your heart is telling you, what the universe is telling you by unusual occurrences that have no other reason to occur. This is a magical journey we're on when we can be like children and open our minds to anything is possible with a miracle mindset. Those miracles are all around us. Let me see. Mirna, how are we doing? Is it about time for questions?
We are actually doing great, and I wanted to have the chance to also ask you something. And it's probably you have heard this 1,000 times before, but how do we know the difference between the things we tell to ourselves and the things that come from another realm? Like, is there a way that you could recommend us that's
Yes.
like infallible? Like, yes, you know that this is coming from there because it's like almost as if it had a signature. Remember
That's
when
right.
like in history we see that when the king sent something, they will stamp it with wax and you will know that it's coming from their desk. Is there something
Yes.
that can mark?
Yes, this is something that comes with communicating with them more often. There is just a knowing this is not just my mind. It's tricky because ultimately we are all connected by one mind, one capital M mind, and each of us is an individual lens of that one mind. But when we set the intention to know that this is another aspect of that mind communicating with us, there's a density, or for other people, a lightness, a difference between our normal thoughts. Another way that we know that it's coming from another aspect of consciousness is when what we discern is super helpful and we would not have thought of it ourselves. And when it is so off the wall that there's no other explanation that it's someone else. There is this big gray area where we may just never know if we weren't making it up. So that's when we ask, was it helpful and was it healing? If it is, then what does it matter if it's all one mind that's flowing back and forth?
That's very interesting. It is beautiful. We have a question through our YouTube chat. Well, it's not a question actually. It's a comment, but I think it's really nice. I am totally meant to be here because I forgot. Flipped over to YouTube today, and by accident, in quotes, this was my first cue.
Yeah, and
this
that's
is
it. There are no accidents.
there
like
are
that.
no accidents. Do you believe, or the in your experience, we are put in the right time at the right moment, even if that experience is not the most pleasant? Can we say that even that is commanded by higher realms?
Yes, but not everyone, because we are all interconnected, and that you come to learn when you really dive into this web of consciousness. Other people's choices do affect us. Those are the wild cards in consciousness because not everything is predetermined. But when you can look back on something and say, wow, that was meant to happen for me, then you know that it's part of your destiny. But little things, those momentary, what I call God winks, and those things we say for some reason just happen to happen. Those are the beautiful ways that we know we're connected. There was a woman that commented on one of the Daily Way messages I post. They're all at dailyway.org. She said, moments before your Daily Way message showed up in my email, I said, oh, Spirit, I'm struggling. I'm just struggling. I don't know what to do. The email showed up. She opened it up, and that daily message at that very moment began with, are you struggling? Do you know what to do? These kinds of things happen every day because Spirit just is nudging us, guiding us. It's so comforting to know that.
I love that. It is without saying much or without using words that are, nowadays kind of forbidden in social media. But we know that through the past year and a half, we've been going through a very, challenging times. Most people have gone through probably more than they have ever gone through. How do we keep ourselves aligned? How do we do to keep ourselves with our energy feel clean and harmonious?
Beautiful. Yeah. It's by knowing, first of all, that you are this energy field, which is so much more than the body, and that we must take personal responsibility for clearing it and for paying attention, being aware of our thoughts. We are the one that drag our thoughts down throughout the whole pandemic. Thank goodness for my tools over a decade. I just flowed with it. And that's what I want everybody to learn how to do, to flow, to see challenges as opportunities. What a difference in feeling that is. I learned this the hard way, the painful way, through Susan's passing, which you think is the most terrible thing that could ever happen. And yet the most beautiful things ever have resulted from that. So I'm sure that if we all take an opportunity to look, we can find the silver lining in everything. What's the silver lining for each one of you in the pandemic? How have you gotten stronger? Focus on that. And if you can't find anything, ask your angels to show you what else, how else might I be looking at this?
Thank you for that answer. Let's go with Loreto. He is writing through the Facebook chat. Both soul and human. How different is it from spirit having a human experience? To my mind, being both soul and human is a more balanced view, accepting both of them, both aspects of who we are. What can we tell to Loreto? Is there a real difference, or is it a matter of perspective?
It's totally a matter of point of view. The soul is always aware that it's having this human experience, but the human often forgets. It's like going into a movie theater and sitting in the balcony and getting so sucked into that drama that we forget it's just a movie. Just this week, my guides in the Daily Way message showed us that image of where you have two faces looking at each other, but if you shift your point of view, it suddenly looks like a vase. So we choose that point of view. Are we going to focus on the vase or the faces? Are we going to choose to focus on our human life or our soul life? For a moment, you can focus on both, but just for the briefest of moment, because that's how this reality is designed. But once you become aware we're both, shifting back and forth more often changes everything. When life becomes too much in the human drama, you shift to soul focus and you use this phrase that my guides taught me, and it works every time. Isn't that interesting? That's the soul's question. While the human's going, oh my God, I can't handle this. I don't know what to do. Isn't that interesting? Immediately takes you to this beautiful, peaceful, neutral state where you have gotten higher perspective. So what do you do now? Pause, shift, and say, as a soul, I know I can connect to my guides. Help me out here. I don't know what to do. And in that pause, with that shift of perspective, a whole new perspective will come in and now make a choice to respond from that place when you go back into human point of view.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's bring a comment that Scott is leaving for us in the YouTube chat. I just think it's very funny. He says, you just answered my question about angels. And
yes, it was him.
Thank you.
It was him. He was the one that wrote all those questions yesterday.
And he says that he tuned right before you started giving the answers.
Now, Scott and everybody, what does that show us? He listened. Whatever voice said, maybe I should tune in, maybe I should do this, he could be off doing 100 other things. That shows you he's not alone, and none of us are. So it becomes a matter of take a step, pause, take a step, pause. You don't even have to actively in that pause say, what do I do next? It's just that intention of being attuned and being part of a team. I know I'm guided. I trust it. I'm not going to plow through life anymore. I'm going to do it as a team member for my own soul's benefit and the whole. Is such a beautiful way to live.
That sounds like removing a lot of friction from other things, because it feels that most of our daily habits are habits that are kind of counterintuitive, that are kind of separating us from
Yes.
an easier, more, easy flowing way of living, Suzanne. And I've been hearing you throughout this time, and I've been feeling really good as I hear you and as I get your content and your knowledge. And I wanted to dare to ask you something, because I understand that mediumship and that all that knowledge comes in different ways to different people that have the ability to get that information. What is your input? How do you perceive that? Do you hear it? Do you see it? Do you feel it when you get information from other worlds? How is it presented to you?
I'm so grateful that for me, it's using all of the non-physical senses and the physical senses. So I'll see image in my mind's eye. I'll hear thoughts. Sometimes I hear certain loved ones' actual voices in my inner ear. I get physical symptoms in my own body. I have just a sense. And the greatest way is just that knowing. There are some times when I'm connecting with a person's loved ones or their guides, and there's no question. I don't even have to ask, does this resonate with you? It is just stunning how that knowing is given to us. This is truth. It's a beautiful thing. And it takes dedication and commitment to working with those in spirit, to improving our choices, to clearing out the conditioned thoughts that are holding us in being very human, because human nature can be kind of nasty at times. I just saw myself do something yesterday. I was stunned at how I reacted to something. I just sat there for an hour saying, how could I do that? It was just a little selfish thing that I reacted with spontaneously. And it just shows us that's part of human nature. At least we can recognize it and try to do better next time.
That's beautiful. The habit of self-observation is definitely very, very fruitful. Angel Blessings is the username of the next person. And she's telling us the following. There was a time when I made a list and let it go. Later on the words, let me see. Okay, the words from my list started to pop up in conversations. And it's not a question, it's actually something that she's telling us, or he, how that list that she made started to actually surface.
Oh, yes. And that to me is the spirit world saying, get back to this list. Don't forget the magic. I had somebody just yesterday was really feeling sad, missing a loved one. And suddenly a random memory popped up on their screen for no reason. Spirit loves to manipulate our electronics. They even mess with cell phones. It's the stories I've heard over the years and the personal experiences I've had are stunning. And it really, really helps to write them down and make that list, because it's so easy to go back to human only mode and think, oh, I made it all up. You didn't. Trust me.
Yes, it's my experience to see very weird things happen with electronics. Through our Periscope chat, Adriana is asking, how long can you communicate with a person who has passed? Is it days, months, years?
Decades, eternity. And does it serve the greater good? Now, medium can tune into somebody immediately after they pass, depending on how lucid that soul is across the veil. And their human story has, how much is it interfering with that soul across the veil? So sometimes right away, but sometimes not. But I have tuned into people who've been on the other side for a year, 10 years, 50 years. I even tuned into a great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather from the Civil War. But you see, those who can help us most now are the ones most likely to come through. So that's why we don't usually hear from the great-greats. But there's a great video, I won't get into it now, on my YouTube channel about reincarnation, because people always want to know, what if my loved one reincarnates before I get across the veil? The bottom line is, you don't have to worry.
I love that. Is there time, the way we perceive time, like linear time beyond the veil, Suzanne?
There is not, so they tell us. And the best way they tell us to understand what their world is like is, what is time like in your dreams? everything's just happening. There's no awareness of a passage of time. And so one of the greatest messages from loved ones across the veil is, for us, it's just going to be the blink of an eye until we see each other face to face again. For now, we see you. Talk to us. We hear you. We're right here.
We have Marcela Jimenez on the chat and the YouTube chat. She's very happy and thankful for finding you. We have also Angel Blessings asking through our YouTube chat, how can I know if the synchronicities in signs that I got are from source or somewhere else?
And again, that's what we were talking about. So go back and watch the video once it's posted, because we really gave a lot of good tools there.
Thank you for that answer. We have Kata. I can't really pronounce this, but let me try and do a better job reading. Katarsai Nazaila. This is beautiful, says, but I called my dad so many times to come to show me signs with no success. I follow your guidelines, but I don't know what I may be doing wrong. Is there a way that the one that is on the other side simply doesn't really need to communicate? Or
this is truth, and you know, I'm a medium, and yet I so rarely hear from my own parents who have passed. And I was actually told that for me personally, this is about coming to not need my parents. I know they're around. I love them, but I'm trying to not be so tied to the Suzanne story and see us all as souls. That's my path. Now, it could be that your loved one is not a good communicator. There are so many reasons. So she asked, what am I doing wrong? We can't do anything wrong, but if there were anything I would correct, it's to stop blaming yourself that you are doing something wrong. Just trust spirit, please, and remain open that at some point your loved ones, if they're doing their best, will get through to you somehow, maybe through another messenger. We just don't know, but it is pretty different for every soul.
Thank you for that answer. From Mexico, Marcela Jimenez. She wants to know if there is a way in which you could help her finding out if the information she has been channeling is like faithful information, if it's information that she can trust, if it's information from the light.
Okay. And again, the litmus test every time. Is it helpful? Is it healing? And is there something in there that are things you would not have known? And if you really need that validation, then you say to your guides, look, if I'm to keep doing this, I need you to give me some things that I couldn't know. For example, the ones who give me the Daily Way messages, every once in a while, they throw things in to just show this is not Suzanne speaking. For example, one day the message of love used puppies as an analogy. And I came to find out later through somebody who read the online message, it was National Puppy Day. So ask them to give you things you don't know. Is it helpful? Is it healing? Is it beyond your normal insights?
Wow. As we reach the end of this conversation, of this space, what would you like to leave us with? What are your closing thoughts, Suzanne, on this?
Yes, I'd like to give you another beautiful story about a soul who passed. I brought him through in a reading, and it's one of the reasons I don't immediately make an assumption, oh, this is your father or your mother or your loved one. They loved you so much. We get to the other side and we absolutely feel the love that's our true nature, but not all of us get it while we're here. This is my goal, for more of us to understand that we're here to grow in loving and connection with each other. But this father came through hanging his head with an apology, and he showed me he was a gambler, a big problem with that, and he was a cheater. He had a message for his daughter. I had my priorities all wrong. He gave us more evidence. She knew about the gambling and the cheating. He told me he had fallen off a horse when he was young, and it affected him his whole life with an injured leg and a limp. She says, this is my dad. So see, we can get validations, evidence that this communication is real. But the most important connections are when those apologies come through, the forgiveness, all of that can take place without a medium. If you have anything left unsaid to a loved one, don't carry it around like a stone on your chest. say it. Give your apologies, give your thanks, give your love, because once we cross the veil, that's what our loved ones want to do. They see the missed opportunities. They want to thank you. They want to ask for your forgiveness. So why wait? Let's take care of all of it now and make all of our choices come from that place of love. I just hope that all of you will take advantage of your time here in a physical body to make those loving choices, not only because it's why we're here, but because the peace, the love, and the joy that just flow, the more we do so, changes everything.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. It's been a great pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for sharing your time, your knowledge. The Mindalia TV community is very, very, very grateful with what you just did. And to the ones that are behind the camera, beyond the screen, thank you again. And remember that every time that you interact with us in our different media, in our different platform, you leave us a comment, you help us reach one more person in the planet. You help us with our mission, which is to just share information that can help raise the level of consciousness in the planet. We're sending you all our love and a big hug, all our gratitude too. We're gonna see you again pretty soon in the next Mindalia live streaming. See you soon.